Well, as we begin our journey together tonight, I thought I might begin by sharing with you one of my favorite stories as a way of, at least partial introduction, give you a sense of who I am, what concerns me. It's a tale of a kindergarten class being given their first tour of the sanctuary by the rabbi. And as for many of them, it's the first time in the sanctuary. The rabbi is showing them, all the important sites, the different pieces of artwork, the menorah, the Israeli flag, the eternal light, the different plaques around the room. All the while keeping what's behind those doors for last, as of course it is the most special. Well, as we rabbis often do, he spoke a little too long and ran out of time. So we encouraged the teacher to bring the kindergarten class back next week so that he could show them what's behind the doors. Well, what's behind the doors became quite the topic of conversation as the children returned to their classroom. One student, a great fan of television game shows, was sure that what was behind that door was a brand new car. Another, the pessimist of the group, told everyone that it was just an empty closet. And of course, the scholar of the group knew that the Sefer Torah was there, but the one who caught the teacher's attention turned to her classmates and said, "You know what? You are all wrong. What's behind those doors is a great big mirror." And of course, she was right, because that's exactly what is behind those doors, a great big mirror, which somehow miraculously seems to reflect back to us something we each need to see exactly when we need to see it. In a particular important moment in our life, when something is going on, we find something there. For instance, in these past weeks, as we've been reading from the book of Numbers, what keeps being reflected back to me from the mirror behind those doors are important lessons about perspective. Perspective. Perhaps it's because of all the difficult news we have been receiving from the world around us, that the Torah keeps sending back to me a message about hope and faith. And it's a message I find once again this week in the story of 5 daughters. They are the daughters of a man whose name is Zelophehad. Zelophehad, you probably won't run into him anytime soon. Their father has died, in fact, and as he has no sons in this exceptionally patriarchal society, there are no rightful heirs. And this is a problem made even worse by the timing of his death, because Moses has literally just completed a census of the Israelites in order to divvy up the promised land. And the lack of a male heir means that Zelophehad's families will not receive any land. And so the 5 sisters decide to make an appeal to Moses. They say, "Let not our father's name be lost to the clan." Now, it's a rather savvy and strategic appeal, actually, because they don't call attention to what their family is going to lose, but rather to what the entire tribe will lose. And Moses hears them and brings their case before God. Coming as it does on the heels of an insurrection by Korach, as well as, of course, the continual complaining of the Israelites about everything under the world, we would not be surprised to find the daughters' challenge rebuffed. But instead, their case is found to be just, and it leads to a change in the nation's laws of inheritance. In fact, the reform of the system that happens here in the Torah is regarded as happens by Moses and God, is so remarkable that the sages feel the need to explain what the heck is going on here. And they begin by taking note of what immediately precedes the telling of these women's story. That is the aforementioned allocation of all the land of the promised land. And the Torah notes that of the generation of the Exodus, only Caleb and Joshua will survive to enter the promised land. It says in Hebrew, V'lo notar mehem ish. No one else will survive, the Torah tells us. However, pointing to the proximity of this sentence to the story of the daughters, the sages read the sentence quite literally. V'lo notar mehem ish. No man survived. Ish, no man survived. Bachi ben Asher, a great biblical scholar who lived in Spain at the end of the 13th century, wrote, of the men of military age who left Egypt, none survived. However, many women did. This verse teaches, he said, teaches that decreeing that the generation of the Exodus had to die in the desert applied to men only. It was the men in the story of the spies sent to scout out the land who had demanded the return to Egypt. The men hated the land of Israel, but not the women, he writes, who, like the daughters of Zelophehad, demanded their rightful share of the promised land. And according to the sages, it was precisely because of the Jewish women who were so fond for the land that the Torah deliberately placed the story of the daughters of Zelophehad right here in this particular place, directly after Moses' allocation of the land. So why do I share that story with you tonight? Because I find reflected in this story, as it has been reflected in a variety of ways over stories we've been reading over the past several weeks, a message about the critical nature of perspective. This story, as well as many others in the book of Numbers, seem to be asking us, when you look out at the world, what do you see? Light or darkness? Blessing or curse? Opportunity or threat? There's the answer. And further, what counts? What matters to you? What are you willing to stand up for? What are you willing to fight for? Over these past several weeks, as we've journeyed with our Israelite ancestors towards the promised land, we have been asked these questions time and again. Is your vision like that of Korach's, limited by the egoist pursuit of power and self-interest? Or like the 10 Israelite spies, do you perceive only your own limitations? Or like the other two, Caleb and Joshua, do you recognize the power and possibility of what we can do and accomplish together? Is your perspective, like King Balak's, clouded by fear of those who are different? Or like the sorcerer Balaam, are you able to look beyond difference and perceive the divine image and blessing residing within us all? Will we simply accept what is? Or like the daughters of Zelophehad, with pragmatic yet hopeful eyes turned toward the future, will we smartly and strategically fight for what we all justly deserve? These are the questions and the challenges that confront us in this moment in ways large and small. They are the questions and challenges of this moment of transition for you, members of this precious Kol Ami community. Is this moment one of curse or of blessing? Can you see beyond what has been and envision what might be? Can you recognize the power and possibility of what we can achieve together? How each member of this sacred community responds will be vital in determining the future direction of Kol Ami. And I look forward to having those discussions with you over the course of this coming year. And of course, on a much larger scale, this community finds itself squarely the focus of unwarranted and unwanted attention and hateful curses. In the face of legal and moral and religious and societal perversions attempting to push us backward towards some greatness that never existed, we must continue to stand up, to speak out, and redouble our efforts to move continually forward towards that envisioned promised land. And once again, I look forward to the opportunity to join you in those efforts. The message reflected to us from the Torah is very clear. To reach the promised land, we must not be deterred by the difficulties of this moment, but rather with hope, with conviction, with faith, and with passion, we must continue to pursue the vision that first set us all on this path. The vision of a land of justice and integrity for all, of care and compassion for all, a land that is inclusive of all, a land that reflects the promise our tradition has held out for a millennia, where all may be seen as they truly are, reflections of God, in whose beautiful, vibrant, diverse, and magnificent image we have all been created. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Amen.